Species, as defined by Berkeley University, are groups of individuals that actually or potentially inbreed in nature to produce fertile offspring. Speciation, however, is the creation of new and distinguishable species through the process of evolution. Researcher Liu Zhengyi explains the function of speciation genes is so that organisms can evolve into different species to adapt to different environments. Types of speciation include allopatric, parapatric, parapatric, and sympatric. Allopatric speciation is when a physical geographic boundary causes the separation of the species. Examples of this would be bodies of water such as rivers and oceans, or landforms such as mountains and canyons. N. Knowlton and L. A. Wyatt claim that approximately 3 million years ago, the connection between the Caribbean and Eastern Pacific was closed by the Isthmus of Panama, which caused a division between the snapping shrimp genus of Alpheus. These two almost identical snapping shrimp have different DNA, caused by 3 million years of separation at the Isthmus of Panama. On the top is a shrimp of the Pacific Ocean. On the bottom is a shrimp of the Atlantic Ocean. Parapatric speciation is when a species is spread out along a joint area that just so happens to have different environments. The different groups eventually adapt to their separate surroundings and in turn form distinctively unique species. There is no specific defining physical barrier between the species, so the two species are free to mate with one another, but do not for some reason, and only mate with their closest surroundings. Fullerton explains how sweet vernal grass has been found growing near mines, where the soil has over time been contaminated with heavy metals. These plants that grow in this area have experienced natural selection for genotypes tolerant to heavy metals. However, the plants which do not grow in the contaminated area are not tolerant to heavy metals. Parapatric speciation is when a part of a species is isolated either by geographical or disastrous means. In this situation, the species has such a small genus pool that rare traits are often passed on more frequently, therefore making this part of the species incompatible to mate with the original species. An example of this, written by Jennifer Toes of the Queen's Messenger, is the difference between the terrarian and subterranean forms of the Culex pipiens mosquito. Some of these mosquitoes entered the London Underground tunnel system in the 19th century. The subterranean version is human-biting, while the surface mosquitoes choose to feed on birds. Evidence of this speciation includes genetic differences in behavioral differences and difficulty in mating. Sympatric speciation is when a species is not separated at all, but still becomes genetically different due to reproductive isolation. Individuals within a species choose to mate with others based on specific preferences. That preference would be passed on to the offspring, who would also choose mates based on specific criteria. The act of reproductive isolation would split the species and eventually create two different species entirely. Martin Kelly of Buffalo State College reports that approximately 200 years ago, the ancestors of apple maggot flies laid their eggs only on hawthorn apples, which were native to America. But today, these flies lay eggs on hawthorn and domestic apples that were introduced by immigrants and bred there. Females generally choose to lay their eggs on the type of fruit they grew in, and males tend to look for mates on the types of fruit they grew in. So hawthorn flies generally end up mating with other hawthorn flies, and other apple flies generally end up mating with other apple flies. But how is speciation beneficial to us? As explained in the diagram provided by the British Broadcasting Company, through any speciation process, isolation is maintained. Mutations are formed by said isolation groups, and eventually, through natural selection, two different species are formed, thus preventing inbreeding. Due to a lack of inbreeding, species can continue to remain healthy and fertile, and we, as humans, can continue to either enjoy the benefits of these species or be bothered by the species which remain existent.